ColorFast is a plugin that installs in all of the compatible hosts in your operating system, which includes After Effects, Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro version 6, 7, and 10, Media Composer, EDS, Sony Vegas Pro, as well as Vegas Movie Studio. I'm going to use the plugin in Premiere, but the interface is the same in all the hosts. So jumping right in, this is a shot from a film that I graded for Charles Unsell. He generously gave me permission to use this footage. In this shot, Charles wanted a very dark, high contrast image and take away a little bit of that blue cast. It's a very blue shot. So I'm going to start by applying the plugin to the clip. I'm also going to open my reference monitor so we could look at the YC curve. If you right click, you can pick which curve we want to see. We want to concentrate on the luma, so I'm going to stick with the YC waveform. So basically the way the chart works, for those of you who are doing this for the first time, 0 represents absolute black, 100 represents absolute white. Anything below the 0 point is details being lost in the blacks, and anything above 100 is details being lost in the highlights. So if we look at our plugin over here, I'm going to go over the interface right now. First, you're going to see that ColorFast is divided into 3 sections: options and presets. The presets has a whole list of presets you could use. Then we have the primary correction and then the secondary correction. For this shot, we only need to do a primary correction. Pick white allows you to choose what white point on the image you want to represent as absolute white. Now normally this is something that you want to pick that was already white in the shot, for instance a white piece of cloth or a white wall or something like that. The alternate method is to pick the brightest white highlight, and in this particular image we do have a bright white highlight. It's this part of her cheek right here, so I'm going to click on that, and that'll allow me to basically take out a little bit of the blue. So as you can see, a little bit of the blue is gone. It's a little bit warmer. Saturation, of course, controls the saturation of the image. Now the next 3 parameters, exposure, brightness, and film gamma, determine how the luma is interpreted. And for that, I have a separate grayscale image which will better illustrate what they do. So here's a grayscale image from After Effects that I created from absolute black to absolute white. As you can see in the YC waveform, it's perfect. It goes from 0 all the way to 100. The exposure setting basically shifts the luma curve up and down linearly in unison. So here you can see the white point being clipped off, and you can see that in our image. And if I bring this low enough, then the blacks get clipped off over here. I'm going to reset that. Brightness curves the luma in such a way that the highlights are increased, but it still pins the black point and the white point. So essentially, when you move the brightness curve, no highlight information is being lost. At 100% setting, the high setting, it's a very steep curve. This parameter also has a negative setting, and you can see what it does to the image. It creates a very steep highlight over here. My favorite feature is the film gamma feature. What this does, essentially, is it expands the contrast by creating an S-curve. And by doing an S-curve, you keep the details in the shadows and the highlights, but you spread the contrast in between, and you can see that in our image. If I turn it off and on, the contrast is increased, but the details and the blacks and the highlights are kept. So going back to our first example here, we can see that I can bring up the exposure and increase the contrast by increasing the film gamma here. And notice that we still have a little bit of gap between this shadow area and 0, and I want to bring this shadow area down to absolute black. So now I'm going to bring down the exposure, and her highlights are actually pretty good. I wanted her highlights to be between 80 and 90, very bright highlights. Now this is a very high contrast image, but it's perfect for this shot.